Well, good morning, everybody. Just a quick announcement today. This will be my last video this week. I'm going to take tomorrow, Friday off and go visit some family for this Easter weekend. Here's what's ahead in this particular video. I'm going to introduce you to a new resource from NOAA that I think you're going to hopefully get a lot of great use out of. We're going to walk through what the next 10 to 15 days looks like, some model trends to the warmer side as we approach April for a lot of the country. We're then going to do a recap of the longer range for the whole of the growing season, my analog forecast, and then I'm going to compare it to the CPC stuff, which we talked about last week. And at the very end, we're going to take a quick look at South American weather. So while I've been discussing this, you've been looking at the Mississippi River here at Tennessee. We look at this all the time, and it's just a point to make that a year ago right now, with all that snowpack in the northern plains, we were already seeing the Mississippi come up. So we were at 21 on our way to about 25 feet above low stage. Currently, we're over here at about 7.5 feet above low stage on the Mississippi River. And even though there's some good snow in the northern plains right now, in the upper Midwest, it's not quite to the extent, not even close, honestly, to what we had a year ago. So just something to think about for the spring flood threat along the Mississippi. So here's the new resource I want you to go check out. It's just water.noaa.gov. Great resource. They redesigned their webpage, and I'm showing you here the river gauges around the country from the USGS. Now what I've done is I've already clicked over here on these two radio buttons to turn off the no flood indicators, because I only want to see the ones that are in some sort of action stage all the way up to major flood stage. And as you look at it, that's what the icons represent. And I'm really going to focus in here on North Carolina. You know, this is an area that throughout winter was missed a lot with precip and now just recently got hit hard with it. Multiple systems as of late, and we have a flood watch out for this area. But when you go to the website, water.noaa.gov, you can click on any of these individual icons here. Like I'll pick on this one, the Tar River at Greenville, and you get where the river currently is in a forecast. So it's expected to get to moderate flood stage by the time we get into early next week. And again, a lot of this is from the heavy rains that are coming through right now. You can see those heavy rains through 5 a.m. this morning across the East Coast from the current front that's stalled out there, and very, very wet as of late. And that front's going to be here for most of the day because the flow across the front is parallel to it. In other words, the front is arcing like this, and the upper level flow is just like that on top of it. So nothing pushing it off to the east. But as you stand and look at this map here, this is just our last 72 hours, and we've spent quite a bit of time discussing, you know, this area in through here that was just completely missed by this previous storm. One neat thing that we can look at, though, is if we go to the radar data right now this morning, you notice that what I mentioned here about the flow over the top of that front. Watch the storms and rain just kind of continually hit the same area. And the boundaries here, and just notice the moisture is coming right along the boundary, not over it, and pushing things off to the east. Our attention is going to go quickly to the west as we look for the next 5 to 7 days. And as the forecast sets up in the west, I want to show you a bit of a clear view of the middle part of the country. So this is some satellite data. This is this morning before the sun rises, but let me take you back to yesterday, because you could see the snowpack in the northern plains and part of the upper Midwest as that low went toward Ontario. And I always love looking at this. You can see, you know, the origins of the Missouri River. You can see where it's frozen, where it's not. You can see the Minnesota River as well, pretty clearly outlined here. And there is a good deal. There's between a ½ inch and one place in here over 2 inches of liquid in that snow that's going to melt and get into the ground, which we do desperately need. I also noticed this at the end of the animation. Take a look down in Kansas. A lot of prescribed burning. This is all smoke here from prescribed burns in Kansas, which are much easier to see as the sun angles get low. You get a little more oblique scattering angle, and it just shows up a bit better there. But thinking about that snow, this map changed quite a bit. As you look at it here, some of these numbers, which a week ago were in the 15 to 20% range, are now in the 30, 40, 50% range. So still less than half of normal snow on the season, but we did see some improvement in that area. But as I said, our attention is going to go west. And what we're going to watch over the next 3 days is this upper level low sitting and spinning here, which has helped drive all of this moisture into the western United States. It is going to kind of give way to a broader trough that's currently sitting here, which will develop a new low just off the California coast. What I'm talking about is this. This is the low you're currently looking at in that previous animation, but the broader trough is going to dig here, and that's where the kind of secondary low is going to take over and deepen and get cut off. because by the time you get to Saturday, the pattern is amplified. Notice the more north-south flow to it, and it's going to take still a few more days. We're not going to wait until Tuesday before this comes out into the midsection of the country and starts to get its way toward the east. So with that as a setup, let me show you the upper levels. I think the story just continues to be written here, and I'm going to start off with the artificial intelligence forecast. It is the same one that performed so well on the previous system. So what it shows us is this. Through Friday into Saturday, we watch that low get stuck, highly amplified flow. Look at this ridge, broader trough to the south of it. A weaker ridge opens, and right here, if you can kind of watch where I'm moving the cursor, there's going to be a pretty strong thermal gradient in the lower levels of the atmosphere. Warm to the south of where I'm drawing, quite cold to the north. And this is early in the morning on Easter Sunday. As we play through early next week, we're going to watch that trough sweep into the midsection of the country. And on Monday night, we're going to watch the leading edge of this, because the artificial intelligence system is trying to get this trough oriented a bit more north-south rather than leaning forward as a big positively tilted trough. And you say, why does that matter? Well, what matters is how the moisture comes up out of the Gulf of Mexico, how the low-level flow goes over the top of that, and what the jet stream level winds do over the top of that. It's all about wind shear. And the ensemble forecasts do not bring the trough straight north-south. They leave it tilted, which means the ensembles are not going to pick up on the same kind of risk for strong to severe storms in this area Monday night here, Tuesday night here, as the artificial intelligence and the operational runs are doing. But what I can tell you is as that system goes through, it will deepen rapidly into New England. And big reason for that, look at the size of this ridge going toward Greenland. I'll be honest with you, if we would have had a ridge like that set up this past winter, we would be remembering winter not as a mild winter like we did. We'd be thinking it more about the huge snowstorms that moved across the central United States and just hammered into the Northeast. This is the pattern that snow lovers in Northeast wanted so badly. Now showing up on April 3rd, we needed this back on January 3rd or February 3rd. But this is the way it is. Now, if you remember earlier in this week, I kind of mentioned that once we get out there to the 4th and the 5th and the 6th, which is where we are now, that I kept seeing the models drop troughs in the west. And I wondered if it was a feedback issue, like the model is reverting to a pattern or there's a snow feedback. I'm starting to think that it is actually a signal. And what that means is as we go into the month of April, we could possibly be on a pace of seeing, I'd say, 1.5 systems every 10 days. Okay, maybe 2 systems every 10 days if we keep digging troughs into the west. And what I'll be watching for, so we're watching the one that's going to come out next Monday, Tuesday, that gets into the Northeast by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Well, the next week on Monday, the 8th and 9th, we have this system coming out. And a lot of us are very curious as to the pace and timing of that system simply because of the total eclipse that's going to happen into this area. And if you get a trough that's to the west, you're going to open up a broad cloud shield here, unfortunately. Now, there's still a lot of time before this, so we will continue to forecast it, but I want you to be aware of something that could potentially be disruptive to viewing that total eclipse. That trough right there could be the problem. But we'll watch the evolution of the forecast. I'll keep you up to speed on that. So from here, let's just kind of go to the end effect. What do we have until then? Because remember, this is only a 10-day forecast map. So this only captures the first couple of the systems, not this system out there on the 8th, 9th, and 10th. So we have the low that moves north-south. That's why it's so wet here and tries to move out. There's a stalled out frontal boundary right in through this area. That's going to get a lot of heavy precipitation in Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, kind of the southeast corner of Iowa. We're dry across the mid-south, and we need this dryness. We need a break from the precipitation, but we're a bit drier in the upper Midwest as well. This same forecast is being echoed by the ECMWF artificial intelligence forecast. A little bit broader view here that I made in the map, but you see a lot of similarities between this one and this one. So there's some consistency there. Okay, probability maps. Let's just go have a quick look at the next 10 days, best chance of getting over an inch. So we now see those same regions being identified. So it's nice to see the operational run, the artificial intelligence, and the ensemble painting a similar picture. But if we think about the drier side of this, this is who sees less than 1/10 of an inch in the next 10 days. And I'm going to make a case for this again at the end of this video, but it appears that right now this could be an important early season indicator on the risk of where our summer drought epicenter could be. Now, you're going to note here that that is in agreement with the CPC, that is in agreement with the European model, but not in the analogs. And I need you to know that there are differences, which means we don't yet fully know where this spring and summer drought risk might be in the United States. I'll make a case, but I just want you to know that it's nothing I'm about to share with you is set in stone. Okay, couple of bits of context on where this upcoming precipitation is going to be. That same area that I showed you has the low probabilities of getting heavy precip is the area we've been monitoring. It's Kansas and parts of Oklahoma and Texas. That area there that's been exceptionally dry, we just have to continue to keep a close eye on. Take a look at this part of South Dakota. What about the Mid-South, right here where the Ohio River and the Missouri come together? And even though there were some big storms yesterday that went through parts of Florida, just take note of some drier conditions in this area. I wanted to give you this same map with a little different look, though. This would be the ranks map. So this would be from March 1st to March 27th, and those same areas jump out. But I was playing around with this website early this morning and also just wanted to show you, instead of a rank, let's just look at a departure. So this is now in inches. And we can see how wet the south has been and up the east coast. Some places here 3 to 5 inches above normal. But it's a point to make here that parts of Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas, where you see that they're only off by 3/4 of an inch. Don't forget this is compounding over what happened last summer and last fall and throughout this winter. And so when we see these numbers here, we have to just keep them relative to their location. So it's much different to be off by almost an inch in Kansas than it is to be off by an inch in Maine, right? So just understand those geographical differences. Okay, so early this morning about 5 a.m., this is our all hazards weather map. We have the flood watches out for parts of North Carolina, Virginia, getting all the way up here into parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. We have the frost and freeze issues going on in this part of the Mid-South, but we're going to watch quite a bit of snow pushing into the Sierra Nevada and getting over into the Rockies as well on some stronger winds. So let's go to the high-res models and kind of get an idea on this. We're going to watch the eastern half of the country first. Stalled out frontal boundary slowly progresses this afternoon to leave the coast by tonight. Look at that. That's going to take a while to get that rain out of this area. Now, as we work our way into tomorrow morning, there is going to be a low that came out of the west that moved through Montana that's going to sit here in southern Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and parts of North Dakota. And it's going to bring in some more snow on top of the areas that just got hit. It's going to add some snow to the Red River Valley tomorrow afternoon. This was an area that was missed by the recent snowstorm. And we're going to watch that system roll over Lake Superior. And we're going to see on Saturday early in the morning some rain getting into parts of Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, this area right in through here. Now that's going to move over the eastern Great Lakes through Saturday midday. Now let's come back to the west. Watch the low that's spinning here just off the coast of Washington and Oregon. Look at the snows in the interior, which we saw already on the satellite imagery. As we play this forward, that low that sits there and spins gives way tonight to the broader trough to its south, such that by tomorrow morning on Friday, there it is. Look at that guy coming in there. And that's what's going to be adding a lot of snow, prompting the winter storm warnings for the Sierra Nevada. But that low, by the time we get into Saturday, just sits and spins right off the coast. It keeps throwing in surges of moisture in through here through midday Saturday. But that is the setup. We're going to have to wait for this low to get out. To show you where it goes, I do need to take you to the Weather Bells website. And the reason for this is I'm still fixing the European model on my side. I'm so sorry for that, but I'll get it fixed. What I've got for you is this place forward. It's getting out there to Friday into Saturday. So let's get through Saturday midday, Saturday evening. So these are the same pieces we just saw in the high-res model. Watch this. There's going to be a front that stalls out right in through here. Now you notice on this map there's a whole lot more lines than are on mine. We have precipitation type and intensity, just like I do, but they add to this pressure, which I also have, and something called thickness. And that thickness represents the average number of meters between where the pressure is 1,000 millibars and where it's 500 millibars. And what that represents is when that thickness value is greater than 5,400 meters or 540 decameters, we tend to get rain. It's just a relationship, and I can explain it more to you later using, first law of thermodynamics, hypsometric equation, all that kind of fun stuff we learn in school. But the reality is we just kind of use it as a benchmark. So that's why they're blue, and the ones above it are red. So take a look at it. As we go forward into Sunday, where's our front? Right here. And that's where the heavy rains are going to be. But take a look on the northern side of it, where there's going to be some snow. That's where we have that 540 line. So just kind of a good indicator. It's not a perfect indicator, not even close, but it's a good one. Now we get into Monday night, right here. Monday night, we're going to watch out for the risk of strong to severe storms as this low follows that front. And as we go into the day on Tuesday, and then Tuesday night here. So Monday night's risk, Tuesday night's risk, and this low is going to move to New England. Now this is when it gets fully into that cold air. So notice by early Wednesday morning, into this part of the Northeast, the potential for some very, very heavy snow as this low clears out and drops in some pretty chilly air. And that gets us out a week. And we're going to leave it there. I do want to let you know, as you saw, going out there to the 5th, 6th, 7th, there are more systems that could possibly roll out of the west, given the deeper troughs in those areas. But just as a reminder, on Monday night, this is where our severe weather risk is going to be. As we get into the day on Tuesday, it's going to translate over here to northern Mississippi, Alabama, through Tennessee, Kentucky, possibly in the Ohio River Valley here. From there, let's take a look at total precip. Next 7 days from the European. This map is still functioning. This would be the 7 days from the GFS. And if we look at the snowy side of it, that's the 7 day from the European. But take a look at what the GFS is doing. Starting you off on Sunday, going early into next week, it's got decent snows back here. And the GFS taps into some colder air over Iowa, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And it tries to bring some snow into those areas. And then bigger snows here into the interior of the Northeast. So just a little bit different look as this next system comes out of the west after dumping quite a bit of snow in the Sierra Nevada and throughout parts of the Central Rockies. All right, what about week 2? Well, as I mentioned, the trough in the west seems to be a more robust signal. And all 3 of our models went over wetter with those troughs moving across the country. It's starting to show up, I think, just as a much stronger signal. And that's also why the rest of April and early May has trended wetter in the European model's solution. That is April 10 to May 10. From here, though, we got to talk about how the temperatures are going to respond, because this morning was quite cold under that snowpack. But as we watch the temperatures change over the next several days, here's our frost risk for the next 7 days, and here's what the high temperatures do. Now you're going to note from Thursday into Friday, a large warm sector opens up here, and by Saturday, this will be the area on which the next low pressure system, which is going to be sitting and spinning here over California, is going to ride. It's going to ride right there along that thermal boundary. So Saturday into Sunday, that's Easter Sunday, see it? And this is why on Monday, our warm sector opens up into this area for the risk of strong to severe storms, but already a 30 to 40 degree contrast just across these states and temperatures as the next front sets up and moves the Tuesday severe weather risk here. The west goes back over warmer temporarily Wednesday into early Thursday, but we do expect it to cool back off somewhat in the day 5 through 10. But these longer range models, day 5 through 10, day 10 through 15, did go over more mild across the east, and it's echoed also in the ECMWF. That's day 5 through 10, and here's day 10 through 15. So that gets you out there almost to the middle of April. That's all the way to Friday, April 12th. And that signal can't be ignored for 2 reasons. This does signal warmer conditions, pushing soil temperatures up. The colder air we're hanging on to in the west is not the signal we want to see. We need to break over and get some heat units here. But the jet will respond by doing this, which is why I think there's an increased risk of more active storm systems rolling across the country throughout the month of April. On the temperature side of it, this is April 10th through the 17th, getting out there to the end of April. There's a lot of warm air to be had in this pattern if you're east of the Rocky Mountains. And that seems to be consistent with the longer term outlooks as well. So where do we go from here? Well, let's go have a look at the CPC, the CFSV2. It's also got more active storm systems coming out mid to late April as well. Just wanted to point that out. And a lot of this is going to hinge on MJO movement, which is likely to get back over into phase 4-5. Now remember, phase 4-5 is a more mild but still an active setup for North America. So that's been a story we've been telling now for feels like 4 or 5 weeks, and it seems to finally be getting into that space. So here's what I want to do to finish this up. I want to show you my analog long-range forecasts, and then I want to show you the CPC again, and we're going to make a story here. Every year that's listed on this is a year in which we had an El Nino in the preceding winter that collapsed in spring and was gone by summer. In fact, many of these years were La Nina by summer. And what it shows is that May to June, if there's an area to be monitoring for drier risks early, it seems to be this part of the Mid-South, the Delta, the lower Mississippi River Valley west. Now that's what the analogs say. That's May to June. Is there any sort of strong temperature relationship? No, not really. What I don't see, though, is that these years did not tend to have colder springs, May to June. All right, so you saw the precip. This is the temperature. What we did find was that when you go later, July to September, nearly all of those years were warmer than average. And therefore, we're looking at a summer that's setting up to have a warmer bias. Now, I think right now a lot of this heat comes in additional warmth in overnight lows, not necessarily extremely hot days. At least that's my thinking now. But that is the temperature pattern for summer. The precipitation pattern, though, in the analogs, there's a lot of competition. What I mean by that is you've got 88 and you've got 2016 in here. You've got like 1992 and 83 as well, but there's also, look at the years that are listed. And this is why I continue to say that my areas that I'm most concerned about is the possibility of drought setting up here in region 1, possibility of setting up here in region 2, or the possibility of setting up here in 3. Those are the areas that, based off of some of these years plus the dynamical models, that I think we could be running the risk of drought developing. Now, the reason why I'm making this case is largely because when you stitch together historically what happened, it was all a play on the position of the Bermuda High and variance of it. You see, when you look at all of them and just go up to the mid-levels of the atmosphere, there tended, when you put it all together, to be some sort of ridging that sat somewhere between the Mid-South and Southeast, maybe toward the Appalachian Mountains. Now, if it sits here, this is going to open up the U.S. to a lot of moisture, except right around Tennessee, Kentucky, getting into the southeast. There will be a lot of thunderstorm activity everywhere that I'm shading in through here and in through here, and an active southwest monsoon. The west will not be excruciatingly hot under this pattern either. But that's when you put them all together. Is that where it's going to be? No, I don't know. I mean, I'm just presenting a case here for you, but it's something that I want to be closely watching as we go forward. Now, speaking of going forward, what about once we get into the hurricane season, August, September, and October? What historically happened in those years was that high pressure set up here in early or late summer, early fall. It set up here, and the Bermuda High lived right there. And pressure was lower coming off of Africa. You say, what does that mean? That means we're going to tend to generate systems that'll go around the southern side of this high. And depending on the week-to-week position of this high, if it's over here, we'll send systems up the East Coast. If it's here, they get pushed into Mexico or they get pushed into Texas. But no matter which way we cut this, history says we get a lot of African easterly waves, drier conditions here. This is precipitation, by the way, underneath that high, and a whole lot of activity. And this is why you're hearing right now about the increased risk of this year's hurricane season being, just well above average. That's all we can say. Anything we add to that is just for show. What I'm trying to tell you is that the ingredients are there to let the atmosphere produce more hurricanes this upcoming late summer and fall. Is this same idea echoed in the CPC? Let's go have a look at it. Because the CPC and the European model both look like this for April, May, June on precipitation. They look like this for May, June, July. You see, they're taking that region 1 and developing it into drought, not the Mid-South. See, it's total conflict to my analogs. This would be May, June, July. What about June, July, August? They're bridging drought from Mexico into Texas all the way up to Canada. And then July, August, September, they're trying to pull the epicenter of it right here over Kansas City while the active hurricane season starts. That's their outlook. It aligns with the European model, a little bit with the Nash Multi-Model Ensemble, but not with the analogs. So we just need to see that there's some competition in this right now, and we're gonna take it at face value and watch the things evolve. So where's my last little bit for today? It's going to be in South America. We're still in the center west and northeast growing areas. A lot of rains. Good little dry stretch down here in southern Brazil, which is needed. More storms coming into Argentina. But you know I've been stressing that if the MJO pops back out into phase 4 or 5, we tend to go over drier here. And if we go over drier there in mid to late April, which is what some of the models are suggesting, this could be a signal that just needs to be monitored for potentially pulling back on the large yield potential for this Safrinha crop. That's all we need to say about it. That's what we know at this point. So I'll stop there and tell you to have a great Easter weekend, and I'll see you again on Monday. Thanks.